Sarah's hand hovered over the Submit Application button for 17 minutes before she closed her laptop. 17 minutes of her cursor circling that blue rectangle, like a hawk that forgot how to dive. 17 minutes of her brain generating every possible reason why this wasn't the right time, why she wasn't quite ready, why maybe she should wait until next quarter when she'd have more experience, more polish, more something. The position was perfect. Senior marketing director at a company she'd admired for years. The job description read like someone had interviewed her about her dream role and written it down word for word. She had every qualification. She'd spent 3 weeks perfecting her resume and cover letter. And yet, when the moment came to actually commit, to actually put herself out there, her finger froze. That freeze, that tiny hesitation, isn't random. It's not weakness. It's not even fear, not really. It's your brain running a calculation so fast, so automatic, that you don't even realize it's happening. 5 seconds. That's all it takes for your brain to talk you out of the thing you know you need to do. 5 seconds for the committee in your head to vote down your courage and elect comfort instead. And the brutal truth? Most people lose their entire lives in those 5-second windows. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't want it badly enough, but because nobody ever taught them what's actually happening in that moment and how to interrupt it. At 32, Sarah Chen had become an expert at almost doing things, almost starting that business, almost having that difficult conversation with her boss, almost joining the gym, almost ending the relationship that had been dead for 2 years, almost applying for positions that excited her. Her apartment was a museum of almost yoga mats still wrapped in plastic, bosom, as books with uncracked spines, a guitar she bought after watching a TED Talk about following your passions. She'd lie awake at 3 a.m. having full conversations with herself about change, detailed plans, genuine motivation. She'd feel it burning in her chest, that certainty that tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow she'd finally, and then tomorrow would come. And in the actual moment of decision, that fire would flicker and die, replaced by something that felt like fog, not dramatic resistance, just heaviness. A subtle weight that made staying exactly where she was feel like the path of least resistance. Her job was fine. Marketing coordinator at a mid-size firm, decent salary, good enough benefits. The kind of position that wouldn't impress anyone at a reunion, but wouldn't embarrass you either. She'd been there 5 years, which was 4 years longer than she'd planned. Her manager, Tom, was the kind of man who said things like, "Let's circle back and synergize our bandwidth," without irony. Every Sunday night, Sarah would feel that familiar dread pooling in her stomach. Every Monday morning, she'd give herself the same pep talk. This week, she'd update her resume. This week, she'd start looking. This week, but weeks became months, became years. She'd watch younger colleagues get promoted past her. She'd sit in meetings pitching ideas she knew were mediocre, watching Tom nod enthusiastically at concepts she could execute in her sleep. The worst part wasn't the boredom. It was the self-awareness. She knew exactly what she was doing. She could see the pattern. And still, when the moment came to break it, something would stop her. The email came on a Thursday morning. 3 words that made her stomach drop. Position has been filled. Sarah stared at her phone, reading and rereading the automated response from the company she'd been obsessing over for months. The company where she'd drafted an application 17 different times, where she'd had the job posting bookmarked, checking it daily like some people check horoscopes. Where she'd rehearsed her interview answers in the shower, planned what she'd wear, imagined her first day. She'd had 3 months. The posting had been up for 92 days, she knew because she'd checked it that many times. 92 opportunities to click submit, and she'd found 92 reasons to wait just 1 more day. Her hands started shaking, not from sadness, from rage. Rage at herself, at the invisible force that kept sabotaging her, at whatever broken circuit in her brain kept running the same program over and over. She walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and looked at herself in the mirror. Really looked. When did the lines around her eyes get so deep? When did that light in her face dim? She thought about her grandmother, who used to say, "Someday isn't a day of the week, baby girl." Her grandmother who fled Vietnam with nothing, who built a life from scratch, who never understood Sarah's paralysis. "You have everything I fought for you to have," she'd said once, frustration cracking through her usual gentleness. "And you're too scared to use it." Sarah slid down the bathroom wall and sat on the cold tile. This was it. This was the bottom, not because she'd failed at something, but because she'd failed to even try. And suddenly, with that clarity that only comes in breaking points, she realized she couldn't do this alone anymore. Whatever was stopping her, she needed help figuring it out. Dr. Marcus Webb wasn't what Sarah expected when she finally dragged herself to therapy. She'd imagined someone stern, analytical, ready to dig into her childhood and construct elaborate theories about her father's emotional distance. Instead, Marcus was in his late 50s, wore sneakers with his slacks, and opened their first session by saying, "Tell me about the last time you knew exactly what you needed to do and didn't do it." Sarah laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "You mean like today? This morning? 20 minutes ago?" She told him about the job, about the 17 minutes, about the years of almost. As she talked, Marcus didn't take notes. He just listened, nodding occasionally, his expression curious rather than clinical. "Here's what I'm hearing," he said when she finished. "You're not lacking motivation. You're not lazy. You actually have exceptional clarity about what you want. The breakdown is happening in the space between decision and action. Does that sound right?" Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. "Yes, exactly yes. It's like, I know what I should do. I want to do it. And then when the moment comes, I just don't." "How long does that moment last? The space between knowing and not doing?" She thought about it, the cursor hovering, the mental spiral starting. "I don't know. A few seconds? Then it's like the momentum is gone and I talk myself into waiting." Marcus leaned forward. 5 seconds. That's what the research shows. Your brain has about a 5-second window between having an instinct to act and your prefrontal cortex stepping in to stop you. And here's the thing, Sarah. Your brain is actually doing its job. It's trying to protect you, but it's using outdated threat detection software. He explained it like this. The human brain evolved to keep us alive in environments where most new actions carried genuine physical risk. Leave the cave, might get eaten. Try the new berry, might get poisoned. Our ancestors survived by being cautious, by thinking things through, by defaulting to the safe bet. That hesitation reflex saved lives. But we're not dodging predators anymore. We're dodging opportunities. And our brain can't tell the difference between the fear of being rejected for a job and the fear of being attacked by a tiger. To your limbic system, they trigger the same alarm, so it does what it's programmed to do. It hits the brakes. The 5-second window, Marcus continued, is how long you have before your brain floods you with every reason not to act. It's like, imagine you're standing at the edge of a pool. The moment you think, I should jump in, you have about 5 seconds before your brain starts the negotiation. The water might be cold. You didn't stretch. Maybe you should wait until later. 5 seconds. After that, you're fighting an uphill battle against your own neurology. "So what do I do?" Sarah asked, and she hated how desperate she sounded. "You interrupt the pattern. You move before the committee meets." "Your brain has a 5-second window," Marcus said, pulling out a simple diagram. "Let me show you what's actually happening." He drew 2 quick shapes, one labeled prefrontal cortex, one labeled limbic system. This one, he pointed to the prefrontal cortex, is your rational mind. It's where intentions live, where you make plans, set goals, decide who you want to be. This one, pointing to the limbic system, is your survival mechanism. It's fast, it's automatic, and it's designed to protect you from anything that feels uncertain. Sarah looked at the drawing. And they're fighting each other? Constantly. Here's what happens in that 5-second window. You have an impulse, apply for the job, speak up in the meeting, go to the gym. That impulse comes from your prefrontal cortex. It's aligned with your values, your goals, your actual desires. But the second you hesitate, the second you pause to think about it, your limbic system interprets that pause as danger. Not real danger, but emotional danger. Rejection, failure, discomfort, and it floods your system with feelings that are designed to stop you. He explained the mechanism like a circuit breaker. Your limbic system evolved to make you feel bad about anything risky as a way to keep you safe. Anxiety, doubt, fatigue, that sudden urge to check your phone or get a snack or remember something else you need to do first. It's not random, Marcus said. It's orchestrated. Your brain is literally creating obstacles to action because from its perspective, inaction equals safety. So I'm just stuck, hardwired to sabotage myself? No, because here's what your brain doesn't expect. Movement, physical action within that 5-second window before the defense system fully activates. The technique is almost stupidly simple. When you have an impulse to act, any impulse aligned with your goals, you count backward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And at 1, you move. You physically interrupt the pattern before your brain can build the wall. Sarah frowned. That's it? Count backward? I know it sounds too simple, but here's why it works. Counting backward is a pattern interrupt. It's just complex enough to occupy your prefrontal cortex, preventing it from spiraling into overthinking. And the physical movement, standing up, clicking send, speaking out loud, that sends a signal to your limbic system that actually overrides the hesitation reflex. You're essentially hijacking your own neurology. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her research. Studies on behavioral activation, the physics concept of activation energy, neurological studies on decision-making latency. Every action requires a certain amount of energy to initiate, like pushing a boulder. The hardest part is getting it moving. Once it's moving, momentum helps, but most people spend so much energy thinking about pushing the boulder that they never actually touch it. The 5C Cond rule gets you past that initial resistance before you can think your way out of it. He outlined the core principles. 1. Your feelings are not a compass. They're a defense system, and they're often wrong about what's actually dangerous. 2. Action comes before motivation, not after. You don't wait to feel like doing something. You do it, and the feeling follows. 3. Hesitation is not thoughtfulness. Real discernment happens quickly. Overthinking is just fear wearing a disguise. 4. You're never going to feel ready. Confidence comes from doing the thing, not from feeling prepared to do the thing. And 5, the window is small. 5 seconds. That's your margin. Use it or lose it. What about big decisions? Sarah asked. Like quitting your job or ending a relationship? You can't just count to 5 and blow up your life. Fair. For major decisions, you do the analysis beforehand. You think it through. You make the actual decision. But here's what happens. People make the decision intellectually and then never execute it. They decide to quit and then don't have the conversation. They decide to end it and then stay for 2 more years. The 5-second rule isn't for making the decision, it's for executing the decision you've already made. It's for closing the gap between knowing and doing. Marcus gave her homework. Not therapy homework. Action homework. For the next week, I want you to practice on low-stakes situations. The moment you think you should do something small, take the stairs, say hi to the neighbor, put your phone away, count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and do it. Train your nervous system that the window exists and you can move through it. Start small. Build the muscle. Sarah left that session feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Not hope, exactly. Hope was too soft, too passive. This was different. This was agency. The sense that maybe the pattern could actually break. Sarah's first real test came the next morning at 6:47 a.m. Her alarm went off. She'd set it for 6:30 with ambitious plans to work out before the day started. She hit snooze twice. By 6:47, she was deep in the familiar negotiation. She was tired. She could work out later. She'd had a long week. Rest was important too. She'd definitely do it tomorrow. And then she remembered. 5 seconds. She felt ridiculous, lying in bed, barely awake, about to count backward like a child. But she did it anyway. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. At 1, she threw off the covers. Her body was already moving before her brain could mount a defense. The workout was terrible. She was slow, clumsy, kept stopping to catch her breath, but she did it. And something shifted, not in her fitness, in her relationship to her own decisions. She'd said she'd do something, and then she'd done it. No epic internal battle, no dramatic willpower expenditure, just a count and movement. She started using it everywhere. In meetings when she had something to say, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, hand up, mouth open. On LinkedIn, when she'd scroll past job postings, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, click save. With her sister, when she'd been avoiding a difficult conversation, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, dial the number. It wasn't magic. Sometimes she'd count and still hesitate. Sometimes the anxiety would surge right through the count. But what she noticed was, the window was real. She could feel it now. That 5-second space where action was possible before the committee convened and voted her down. The real test came 3 weeks in. Sarah saw a job posting, not the one she'd missed, but something even better. Creative director position at a startup she'd been following. Everything in her wanted it. Everything in her was also generating reasons to wait. Polish your portfolio more. Wait until you have more leadership experience. Apply next month. She opened the application, felt the familiar fog descending, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She hit submit before the count finished. Immediately the panic hit. What if her resume had a typo? What if she should have customized the cover letter more? What if... But it was done. The boulder was moving. They called her in 4 days. The interview was scheduled for the following Tuesday. When Tuesday came, Sarah sat in her car outside their office, hands gripping the steering wheel, every cell in her body screaming to drive away. She could reschedule. Say she was sick, they'd understand. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She opened the car door. The interview was brutal. They asked hard questions. Her answers weren't perfect. She stumbled over a question about managing difficult team dynamics. But she was present, actually there, actually trying, actually in the arena instead of watching from the stands. When they asked if she had questions, she used the count again, asked about their biggest challenges, about team culture, about what success looked like in the role. Questions she'd normally be too scared to ask for fear of seeming presumptuous. She didn't get that job. They called a week later with kind words about her being a strong candidate and moving forward with someone who had more direct startup experience. Sarah hung up and cried, not from disappointment, but from relief. She'd tried. She'd actually fully tried, and the rejection didn't kill her, didn't confirm her worst fears. It was just information, data, not a referendum on her worth. The pattern continued. She started speaking up in meetings at her current job, volunteered for a project everyone else was avoiding, had the conversation with Tom about her career progression, or lack thereof, used the 5-second rule to go to networking events, reach out to people she admired on LinkedIn, post about her work instead of hiding it. Not every action led to immediate results, but every action led to momentum. And momentum, she was learning, was its own reward. 6 months later, Sarah's life looked nothing like the version she'd been stuck in. She'd applied to 14 positions, been rejected by 11, had 3 interviews that went nowhere, and landed one offer that changed everything. Chief Marketing Officer at a mid-size company looking to scale. The title she'd convinced herself she wasn't ready for. The salary that made her hands shake when She saw it in writing. The team, the vision, the challenge, everything she'd been almost ready for years. But the external changes weren't even the most dramatic part. Sarah had started painting again, something she'd abandoned in college. She'd ended the dead relationship. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we need to talk, and 3 hours later, it was done. Painful, necessary, done. She'd joined a climbing gym and made friends there. Actual friends, not just work acquaintances. She'd started a side project, a marketing newsletter that had grown to 2,000 subscribers. None of it was perfect. Most of it was messy. But it was happening. She was happening. For the first time in her adult life, she wasn't a spectator in her own story. Her grandmother came to visit and immediately noticed the change. "You look different," she said, studying Sarah's face. "Lighter." Sarah tried to explain the 5-second thing, the therapy, the pattern interrupt. Her grandmother listened and then smiled. "So you finally stopped thinking yourself into circles and started moving. Good. Took you long enough." That was the thing about wisdom. It was usually simple. The complexity was in the execution. Right now, as you're watching this, your brain is running the same 5-second calculation it always does. There's something you know you need to do. Maybe it's big. Apply for the job, have the conversation, make the change. Maybe it's small. Text the friend, start the project, take the walk. You know what it is. You've known for a while. And every time you think about it, your brain starts the negotiation. The reasons to wait, the perfect timing that never comes, the preparation you need to do first. That's not wisdom. That's not discernment. That's your limbic system doing exactly what it's designed to do, protecting you from discomfort by wrapping fear in reasonable-sounding excuses. Here's what you need to understand. Hesitation feels like thoughtfulness, but it's actually a decision to stay where you are, a decision to let the moment pass, a decision to trade action for comfort. And the cost of that decision compounds, not dramatically, not all at once, but day by day, 5 seconds at a time, you're building a life of almosts, almost tried, almost said something, almost changed. Until one day you look back and realize you spent decades waiting for a version of ready that doesn't exist. The 5-second window isn't about being reckless. It's not about making impulsive choices or ignoring legitimate concerns. It's about recognizing the difference between real deliberation and fear in disguise. Real deliberation happens beforehand. You think it through. You weigh the options. You make the decision. But then, and this is where most people get stuck, you have to execute. And execution is where the 5-second window matters. Because your brain will always find reasons to delay. It's not trying to sabotage you. It's trying to save you from the discomfort of uncertainty. But here's the paradox. The only way to build certainty is through act. Ion. You can't think your way to confidence. You have to do your way there. Start noticing your windows. Pay attention to that moment when you think, "I should," and then immediately feel the weight descending. That's the window opening. You have 5 seconds, maybe less, before your brain starts constructing the case for later. The beautiful thing is, you don't need to win the argument. You just need to move before it starts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Count backward, not forward. Backward counting requires just enough mental focus to interrupt the spiral. And at 1, move. Physically move. Stand up. Click send. Speak out loud. Open the door. Whatever the action is, do it in the window. It's going to feel uncomfortable. That's not a sign you're doing it wrong. That's a sign it's working. Your brain is going to protest. You're going to feel anxious, uncertain, underprepared. Move anyway. The feelings are real, but they're not accurate. They're information from a system designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore. A world where trying something new could actually kill you. You're not in that world. In your world, the biggest risk isn't action. It's inaction. It's getting to the end of your life and realizing you spent it negotiating with yourself instead of actually living. Here's what I want you to do in the next 60 seconds. Think about the thing you've been avoiding, the application, the conversation, the project, the call, whatever it is that your brain has been talking you out of. Don't think about doing the whole thing. Just think about the first physical step. Opening the laptop, picking up the phone, walking to the door. Now, I want you to count with me, out loud if you can. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And at 1, take that step. Not the whole journey, just the first physical movement. Because here's the secret nobody tells you. Momentum is easier than motivation. Once you start moving, your brain shifts from defense mode to execution mode. The hardest part is always the gap between stillness and motion. If you do this, if you actually use the count and move in the next 60 seconds, something changes. Not in your circumstances necessarily, but in your relationship to your own agency. You prove to yourself that the pattern can break, that you're not stuck, that the hesitation doesn't have to win. And once you prove it once, you can prove it again and again, until the 5-second rule becomes less of a technique and more of a way of being, until you become someone who moves through windows instead of watching them close. Leave a comment about what you did in your 5 seconds. Not what you're going to do, what you actually did, because saying it out loud, writing it down, making it real, that's another form of momentum. And if you found this helpful, if something shifted for you watching this, share it with someone else who's stuck in the gap between knowing and doing. Most people don't need more information. They need permission to move. They need to see that the window is real and that crossing through it is possible. Your life is happening right now, not when you're ready, not when it's perfect, not when you've eliminated all the risk. Right now, in this moment, with all your doubt and fear and uncertainty. The question is, are you going to live it or almost live it? Because the difference between those two options is measured in 5-second windows, and every window you move through builds a different future. Every window you let close keeps you exactly where you are. 5 seconds, that's all it takes. That's all it's ever taken. Stop negotiating. Start counting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now move.